How's it going? Day five. Day five of the Master Cleanse fast. And doing pretty good. A little tea here, real quick. One thing happened today. The saltwater flush was a little off. And I think it's just because I wasn't walking around enough. I've noticed when I walk around that it usually about 20 minutes after drinking it really starts flowing. So, but I wasn't. I was sitting a little bit, and so once I got up and started walking around, and things started moving more. So that went good. My lymph nodes are just about all empty now, and the ones in my arms seem to be going down a little bit too. So it's right on schedule. When I've done this in the past, usually around the 5-day mark or so, 5 or 6 days, then they've pretty much all emptied out. So it's what's interesting about doing this, a number of times is you start to notice that your body just goes through this same cycle. You can count on it. It's like clockwork. And I've also noticed that my body just kind of goes right into it because it's used to it and knows what to do. So I don't have any sort of weird transitionary issues or anything like that. So, and same with breaking it. Do the little 3-day breaking and everything's working fine. So we're going to go ahead and read in the book a little bit more. So let's see, where were we? So we're getting into now the kind of the meat and potatoes, as it were, of the fast and how he came up with it and stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and just read a little bit here. And again, this is the book by Stanley Burroughs, the Master Cleanse book. Alrighty, so this is called The Origin of the Lemonade Diet. The lemonade diet, about to be described, has successfully and consistently demonstrated its eliminative and building ability. Lemons and limes are the richest source of minerals and vitamins of any food or foods known to man, and they are available the year round. Thus, the diet may be used successfully any month of the year and virtually any place on earth. Its universal appeal and availability make it pleasant and easy to use. The lemonade diet first proved itself in the healing of stomach ulcers over 40 years ago. Permission was given by Bob Norman to share his incident of my first experience with the diet. One day, shortly prior to my first meeting with Bob, I was inspired to write this diet in complete form as a means to give relief and to heal stomach ulcers in 10 days. I rapidly wrote it down in detail and waited for a test case, which always seemed to come when it was needed. Bob Norman had suffered with his ulcer for nearly 3 years. During this time, he had tried everything then known to get help, but nothing in the way of medicine or treatment gave anything but momentary relief. He had to eat something every 2 hours or he was in extreme pain. For the preceding 3 months, he had been living on little other than goat's milk. His doctor wanted to operate, but he refused to have it done. He figured anything would be better than that. He told me I was the last person he would go to. If I couldn't help him, he would just go home and die, as life was hardly worth living in this condition. An explanation of the cause of an ulcer is necessary at this point. There is a sodium coating covering the entire inside wall of the stomach, which, if it remains intact, will prevent the digestive juices from digesting the stomach itself. However, when any form of flesh food enters the stomach, the meat attracts the sodium in the same way as the walls of the stomach. Some of the sodium is drawn from the walls and gathers around the meat, thus prevents the digestion of the meat in the stomach, and at the same time depleting the sodium on the walls of the stomach. As one continues to eat meat and deficiency of sodium in the diet occurs, the sodium lining is not being replaced on the walls of the stomach. The digestive juices then start digesting the stomach, producing what we call an ulcer. When this occurs, all orthodox methods to heal the ulcer fail completely. Sometimes the meat can remain in the stomach for 2 or more hours and begin to ferment and spoil. To be broken down and digested, it must pass on into the small intestine. All forms of meat take longer to digest than do fruit and vegetables. Chicken and other fowl take the longest of all. Just because meat is already a form of flesh, it does not follow that it is readily usable by our bodies. In fact, just the reverse is true. When one considers that flesh foods of all kinds are extremely toxic, it becomes apparent that they are an extremely undesirable form of nourishment. In the eating of meat, we must take into account all of our eliminative organs. They are made primarily to take care of our own waste. When we add animal flesh containing the waste of its cells, or drugs and other unusable materials, extra work is required of these organs, and various forms of trouble will eventually develop. Remember that all solid food must be broken down into liquid form to be carried by the blood before it can nourish the body. Flesh foods of all kinds, including fish, take a much longer time to reach this state and are less useful to the body than fruit, vegetables, and seeds. Back to our story. After all of Bob's explanation, I asked him if he would like to leave his ulcer healed, or like to have his ulcer healed in 10 days. He answered yes. So I handed him the paper with the diet on it. He read it over carefully and handed it back with the explanation that he could never do that, as all expert advice for 3 years had told him to never use citrus, and this was nothing but lemonade. Since orthodox methods had failed completely to heal his ulcer, I reasoned that their advice could be wrong. And since the lemonade diet was contrary to the accepted practices, which had failed, logic told me that it might do the healing. I knew it could do no harm and was confident only good could come from it. I explained to Bob that if all this expert advice was correct, his ulcer would have been healed 3 years ago. It was just possible that the very thing he was told not to use might be the one thing he needed. He thought it over and decided, all right, I'll try it, even if it kills me. He was assured that this would not happen. After 5 days of the diet, Bob called me. Even though he had no pain from the beginning, he was afraid that suddenly all of the old pain would return and he would be miserable again. Formerly, he had to eat something every 2 hours or he would be in pain. And the previous day, he had gone 8 hours without food or drink, with no pain. Yet he was still apprehensive. I assured him that since he had no pain for 5 days, he would be all right and to continue for the full 10 days. On the 11th day, he was examined by the doctor and the ulcer had been completely healed. Needless to say, his doctor was most amazed because he had given Bob a complete examination, including an x-ray, prior to the diet and had recommended an immediate operation because he would not have long to live otherwise. Many other cases of ulcers followed with the same constant results in only 10 days. Numerous other disorders were also corrected during the 10-day period, in person after person. So, there's one example, and I can attest in my own personal life, I had carpal tunnel. So bad that I didn't think I could play guitar anymore. Shooting pains in my shoulders and down my arms. And I had a friend who also had carpal tunnel, just as bad as me. And like this gentleman, she'd been to the doctor and they wanted to maybe do surgery. They signed her up with the DEA because I wanted to give her this really powerful drug. So I did the fast, and within about 6 days, that carpal tunnel was gone. No pain in the shoulder. The arm was fine. So I told my friend. She's like, well, how'd you do it? It's like, well, I did this fast, you know. I don't eat for 10 days. I drink this mixture of lemonade and cayenne pepper and maple syrup and filtered water. She's like, oh, no, I could not eat for 10 days. I explained to her, it's like, wait a minute, it's got all kinds of nutrients and stuff. Don't you want to get rid of your carpal tunnel? wouldn't it be worth 10 days? You've been dealing with this thing for months, and she couldn't even hold like a coffee cup. It's just interesting. Sometimes people can have an answer right in front of them, and they still won't do it because of their own limitations. With her, it was not eating for 10 days. And yet, here I was her friend. I'm doing fine. I've got plenty of energy. The carpal tunnel's gone. And I'm telling her, it's like, you can do this. Couldn't do it. So sometimes you just can't help some people. But this gentleman thought it through and thought, what the heck, anything's going to be better than what I'm going through. So if you have any pains and issues or anything like that, fasting might be a really good alternative for you. That's why at the beginning when I do my journal each time, I write down all the things I'd like to see, fixed. From vision to lymph nodes to little pains here and there. And then I just start checking them off. Not all of them get fixed, but most of them do. So anyway, I think I'm going to call it a night. Like I say, I like to keep these kind of short, 10 or 15 minutes. Going to finish my tea, hit the hay, and have some good dreams. More good dreams last night. As I had said, dreams get pretty intense when you're doing this fast. So if you'd like to find out more, you can always go to tuckersurvival.com, and we have a page now dedicated to this show, which is called Survival Health. And this series we're doing is the Master Cleanse Fast. So you can go there. You can also see our other shows, News from the Bunker. It's got a page for that. We've got we turn these things into podcasts as well. So if you want to listen to Survival Health instead, you can go ahead and download it to your device and do it that way. We've got blogs on there, a news section. So a lot of good information. Again, that's tuckersurvival.com. And you go out there and have a good day, and we will see you next time on Survival Health. You have a good one.
Survival Health is brought to you by Tucker Survival and produced by MBJ Media Services.